Welcome back to this space of calm. Our shared journey tonight has no goal other than rest, and it doesn't matter if you every word as your mind begins to drift towards the peaceful heart of a story about a life that was once very, very simple and a promise that would change everything. As you begin to settle, just one gentle thought. If this space feels like a comfort to you, you might consider a soft tap on the like or subscribe button. But only if that thought feels as effortless as a quiet breath. And if you wish, you can leave a comment below with the name of your city and the time of night where you are. It's a quiet way of knowing we are all listening together, in this shared space, under the same moon. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. Your world, right now, is very small, and that is a wonderful thing. Its edges are defined by the muddy path that winds through the rice paddies and the low, slumbering mountains that cup the valley like gentle hands. You know every stone on that path, every bend in the creek where the minnows dart like scattered silver needles. The air itself has a texture, a taste. In spring, it's thick with the scent of wet earth and plum blossoms. In summer, it hums with the droning of 1,000 cicadas. But now, in the cool, crisp days of autumn, it smells of wood smoke and, most of all, of drying persimmons. You see them everywhere. Your mother has strung them up on long threads, and they hang from the eaves of your small house, glowing like little orange lanterns in the afternoon sun. Their sweetness is the scent of home, the scent of safety. Your days are measured not by a clock, but by a rhythm. You wake with a rooster, your feet bare on the cool dirt floor. You help your mother draw water from the well, its cold shock a familiar morning greeting. You go to the village school, where you learn to write characters that are not your own, and salute a flag that feels foreign and strange. The war for you is mostly a rumor. It's a poster on the wall of village office showing brave soldiers with determined faces. It's the reason sugar is hard to find, and why your father's face sometimes wears a tight, worried look when he thinks no one is watching. Sometimes, uniformed men pass through the village in loud, rumbling trucks that scare the chickens. They are a different kind of people. Their language is sharp and unfamiliar, and they never smile. You and the other children watch them from a distance, a mixture of fear and fascination. They are a story from another world, one that doesn't seem to have anything to do with the rhythm of planting and harvesting that governs your life. Historians now know, of course, that this quiet, rural existence was the perfect recruiting ground. In countless villages just like yours, across Korea, China, the Philippines, and beyond, the machinery of the war effort was looking for resources. And young, dutiful daughters from poor families were seen as just another resource to be gathered. Your family is not starving, but there is never quite enough. You wear your older sister's hand-me-down dress, and the thought of a full bowl of white rice just for yourself is a luxurious dream. You hear whispers. A girl from the next village, they say, went to work in a factory in a big city. She sends money home to her parents every month. Imagine that. To be able to help your family, to ease the worry from your father's brow. It's a powerful idea, a noble one. You want to help. The men who came to the villages, the ones who made the promises, were often not the soldiers themselves. Sometimes they were locals, your own countrymen, acting as brokers. Whether they were independent opportunists or official agents of the army is a question that historians still carefully untangle from unfaded documents, and conflicting testimonies. For you, in this moment, such distinctions are meaningless. All that matters that one day, a man might come who speaks your language, who understands your hopes. But for now, there is only the quiet of the evening settling over the valley. The sun has dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and softest pink. The persimmons on their strings have become dark silhouettes. Your mother is calling you inside for dinner. The air grows colder. You pull your thin shawl tighter around your shoulders and take one last look at the familiar shape of your world, unaware that you are seeing it for the last time. The scent of persimmons is the last perfect memory of a life about to be erased. The man does not arrive in a loud truck. He comes on foot, walking down the same muddy path you know so well. He looks out of place, a black crow in a field of sparrows. His shoes are polished leather, a luxury you've only seen in pictures. And his suit, though a little dusty from the road, is neatly pressed. He does not carry a weapon. He carries a leather briefcase and a smile that seems genuine, if a little tired. He stops at the village well and asks for a drink of water, bowing to the women there. He knows the local customs. He is not a threat. He is a guest. That evening he is sitting on the floor of your small home. Your mother has served him tea, a rare treat saved for important occasions. The air is thick with a quiet tension. Your father sits stiffly, his hands on his knees, listening. The man's voice is calm and reasonable. His words are smooth like polished river stones. He speaks of patriotism, of a great new future for all of Asia, but he quickly brings it down to something much more practical, something you can all understand. He talks about a new factory, far away in a city where the buildings are tall and the lights are bright. A modern, clean place where dedicated young women are needed to help the war effort. Not dangerous work, he assures your father. He says you would be sewing uniforms, or perhaps packing medical supplies for the brave soldiers at the front. It is honorable work, pious work. A way for a good daughter to show her loyalty and bring honor to her family. You are listening from the corner, pretending to mend a tear in your brother's shirt. But your ears are ringing with his words. He paints a picture of a life you can barely imagine. A clean dormitory with real beds, 3 warm meals a day, with meat and even fish, and, most importantly, a wage. A real salary, more money than your father makes in half a year of back-breaking work in the paddies. Most of which, he says with a knowing look at your mother, can be sent home. Enough for medicine for your grandmother. Enough, perhaps, for a full bowl of sweet, white rice every single night. The promise of sweet rice. It hangs in the air, more intoxicating than the tea. Your father is silent, his brow furrowed. The risks are huge. To send his daughter, so young, so far away, to a place he has never seen. But the man is prepared for this. He speaks of other girls from other villages who have already gone. Their parents are so proud, he says. Their letters home are full of joy. This is the core of the deception, a tactic so widespread and effective. The promise of legitimate, even patriotic, employment. Historians have pored over the surviving documents, trying to determine the exact nature of these recruitment networks. How much was centrally organized by the highest levels of the military, and how much was driven by a network of local, private brokers who were paid by the head for each girl they delivered, a system of plausible deniability that left few clear trails of paper. The man senses your father's hesitation. He reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. He places it on the low table in the center of the room. It makes a soft, heavy clinking sound. He explains that it is an advance on your salary, a gift to show the company's good faith, for your family to use, right now as they need. He pushes it gently towards your father. The small bundle of coins seems to glow in the dim light of the oil lamp. It represents more money than you have ever seen in one place. It is the roof fixed. It is the doctor's visit paid. It is a tangible, heavy reality, sitting right there, against the vague and distant fear of the unknown. Your mother looks at your father, her eyes pleading. You look at your hands, your heart pounding. You want to be the one who does this for them. You want to be the daughter who brings home the sweet rice. Your father does not reach for the money. Not right away. He looks at you, his face a mask of love and worry. But the weight of a lifetime of poverty is a powerful force. He gives a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The decision is made. A silent agreement has been sealed. The man smiles, a thin, professional smile this time. He says a truck will be coming to the crossroads at the edge of the village in 2 days' time, just after sunrise. You are to be there with a small bundle of your things. Later that night, long after the man has gone, you lie awake on your sleeping mat. The house is silent except for your father's troubled breathing. You can feel the excitement buzzing under your skin, a thrilling, terrifying current. You are going on an adventure. You are going to be a hero for your family. You picture the city, the factory, the letters you will write home. You have no idea that the advance payment was not a gift, but the first link in a chain of debt that was designed to be unbreakable. You are not an employee, you are a purchase. The air is cold and thin before the dawn, the kind of cold that feels damp in your bones. Your mother has packed a small bundle for you. A change of clothes, a small rice cake wrapped in a leaf, and the little wooden comb she used on your hair when you were a child. She doesn't say much. Words feel too big, too clumsy for this moment. There are no tears, not from her. Her face is a stoic mask, but you feel the tremor in her hands as she straightens the collar of your dress for the last time. Your father gives you a stiff, awkward pat on the head. Be a good girl, he says. Work hard. It is his way of saying I love you. Come back safely. You walk to the crossroads alone. The village is still asleep, shrouded in a soft grey mist. The world feels unreal, like you are walking through a dream. You feel a strange mix of pride and stomach-churning fear. You are the one who is leaving, the one who is leaving, the one who is going to make everything better. You clutch your small bundle and wait. The truck is not the modern vehicle you imagined. It is olive green, drab and anonymous, with a heavy canvas flap covering the back. It looks like the military trucks you've seen before, the ones that rumbled through the village without stopping. The driver, a man you don't recognize, doesn't smile or greet you. He just nods at the back of the truck. You scramble up, your heart pounding, and the canvas flap is pulled shut, plunging you into a dim, dusty twilight. You are not alone. There are other girls in the back. Perhaps a dozen of them, sitting on rough wooden benches, clutching their own small bundles. A few of them are from your village, girls you recognize from school. You exchange nervous, watery smiles. But others are strangers. You can tell by their clothes, by the accents in their whispered greetings, that they are from different regions. The girl next to you murmurs a question in a dialect you barely understand. Two girls huddle together, speaking in a language that sounds completely foreign. A silent rule of separation is immediately established. There is no camaraderie here, only shared uncertainty. The engine rumbles to life, and with a lurch the journey begins. You find a small gap in the canvas and press your eye to it, watching your village, your valley, your entire world shrink until it is just a smudge of green in the distance. And then it is gone. The truck does not stop in the next town or the one after that. It rumbles on hour after hour. The sun beats down on the canvas, turning the air inside hot and stale with the smell of dust and sweat and exhaust fumes. At midday, the truck pulls over and you are given a hard rice bowl and a canteen of water. You are told not to talk. The men who guard you now are not the smiling recruiters. They are soldiers. Their faces are impassive. Their orders are short. The journey becomes a blur. Days bleed into nights. You sleep sitting up, your head lolling against the shoulder of the girl next to you, a stranger whose name you will never know. You cross a bridge over a wide muddy river you don't recognize. The landscape flattens into an endless plain. This is not the way to the city you learned it about in geography lessons. The small, cold seed of doubt that sprouted in your stomach has now taken root. Were the men who drove this first part of the journey fully aware of your final destination? Or were they too just small cogs in a vast machine, local contractors paid to deliver cargo from one point to another without asking questions? It's a detail lost to the deliberate bonfires of military records, a question of complicity that historians still debate in quiet, academic tones. For you, it makes no difference. The result is the same. The truck keeps moving. One day you smell salt in the air. The truck doctors onto a ferry, and you are herded into a dark, crowded hold with the other girls. For the first time you see the ocean. It is not beautiful. It is a vast, grey, terrifying emptiness that separates you completely from everything you have ever known. The journey across the water is rough. When you land, the very air feels different. The signs on the buildings are in a script you cannot read. The language of the soldiers who now herd you is sharper, more guttural. You have crossed a border. You are in a foreign land. You are no longer a daughter going to work in a factory. You are cargo that has been delivered. After the ferry, there is another truck, and another long, bone-jarring journey. The hope you carried in your heart, the image of the cleaned dormitory and the sweet rice, has been worn away by the constant motion, the fear, the gnawing uncertainty. It has been replaced by a quiet, hollow resignation. Then, one evening as the sun is setting, the truck finally shudders to a halt. The canvas flap is thrown back, and the sudden, harsh light makes you flinch. You have arrived, but you are not where you were supposed to be. There are no tall buildings, no bright city lights. There is only a dusty compound, surrounded by a high fence, and a single, unremarkable house with no name. You clamber down from the back of the truck, your limbs stiff and aching from the long journey. The ground is dry and packed hard, and a fine, pale dust puffs up around your worn shoes with every step. For a moment, you just stand there, blinking in the fading light of dusk, letting your eyes adjust. The other girls spill out behind you, a silent, bewildered flock of sheep. The soldiers who drove you are already detaching themselves, their job done. They speak in low tones to another soldier who stands watch at a wooden gate. You take in your surroundings. This is not a factory complex. There are no tall smokestacks, no large, windowed buildings humming with the sound of machinery. There is only a single, two-story building in front of you, a simple house that looks like it might have been a local inn, or perhaps a large family home just a few weeks ago. It has a tiled roof and wooden shutters on the windows. It seems deceptively ordinary, but then your eyes fall on the fence. It is tall, higher than a man's head, and topped with a string of something sharp that glints in the last rays of the sun. It encloses the entire compound. There is only one way in, and one way out, the gate where the soldier stands. The woman comes out of the house. She is not one of you. She is older, perhaps your mother's age, and she wears a traditional Japanese kimono. Its neat lines a stark contrast to your own dusty, travel-worn clothes. She is not smiling. Her face is a mask of stern competence. She assesses you all with the quick, practical glance of a farmer inspecting livestock before an auction. This is the house manager, the Okazan, a figure you will come to know and fear. She is the civilian administrator of this military facility, a buffer between the soldiers and the girls, but never a protector. She is the warden. She says something in her sharp, unfamiliar language, and one of the soldiers translates into a crude version of your own. You are here to work. You will do as you are told. Follow. There is no welcome, no explanation of your duties, no mention of sewing machines or medical supplies. You follow her through the gate and toward the house. The air inside is cool and dim. It smells wrong. It doesn't smell of home, of wood smoke and cooking. It smells of harsh disinfectant, cheap, cloying perfume, and something else, something vaguely stale and human. The front room is empty except for a low table and a few wooden chairs. The woman leads you down a long narrow hallway. On either side of the hall, there is a series of identical wooden doors, each with a small painted number on it. The full, horrifying truth has not yet landed. Your mind is still numb from the journey, still clinging to a thin, frayed thread of hope. Maybe the factory is out back. Maybe this is just the dormitory. But then, one of the numbered doors opens, and a soldier steps out into the hall. He is adjusting his uniform, his face flushed. He glances at the line of new girls with a casual, appraising look, and then walks past you without a word. From inside the room you hear a faint, muffled sob. And in that instant, the final, fragile piece of the lie shatters. This is not a factory. This is not a dormitory. The promise of sweet rice was a phantom, a bait used to lure you into this trap. The house with no name has a purpose, and you are beginning to understand what it is. You feel a cold wave of nausea wash over you. The girl in front of you stumbles, and you put a hand out to steady her, your fingers trembling. This place, officially designated an Ianjo, a comfort station, was a standard feature of the Japanese military machine. How they were established is a topic of ongoing discussion among historians. Was there a single, meticulous blueprint issued from the highest echelons of power in Tokyo? Or did local commanders, given a vague directive to maintain troop morale and prevent a repeat of the widespread chaos and violence seen in places like Nanjing, simply improvise? The evidence suggests a messy combination of both. Some stations were purpose-built barracks, others were converted brothels, and many, like this one, were simply seized local buildings. This ad hoc approach created a system that was both rigidly controlled and wildly inconsistent, a bureaucratic nightmare built to serve a single, brutal function. The house mother stops and points to you, then to one of the numbered doors. A soldier nudges you forward. You walk the last few steps as if in a trance. The door is pushed open, and you are guided inside. Then the door is pulled shut behind you. You hear the heavy, metallic sound of a bolt sliding into place. The sound is final. It is the sound of your old life ending. It is the sound of a cage door closing. You stand in the middle of the small room, your travel bundle still clutched in your hands, and listen to the footsteps of the house mother and the soldier fade down the hallway. For a long moment, there is only silence. It's a heavy, suffocating silence that seems to press in on you from all sides. You are alone, locked in. You take a slow, ragged breath, trying to calm the frantic hammering in your chest. Your mind refuses to process what is happening. It's a mistake. There must be a mistake. Someone will come and explain everything. The woman, the house mother, eventually returns. She does not come alone. This time she brings another woman with her, someone who speaks a broken, functional version of your language. She is not a translator in the kind sense. She is an instrument of instruction. Through her, the new rules are laid out for you. They are delivered in a flat, emotional tone as if she were explaining the operating instructions for a piece of farm equipment. First, your bundle is taken from you. You watch as your spare dress, the little rice cake from your mother, and the small wooden comb are emptied onto the floor. The comb is pushed back towards you. The rest is taken away. You won't need these, the translator says. You will be given new things. This is the first step in stripping away your connection to home, to the person you were. Your possessions are an extension of your identity, and that identity is being systematically dismantled. Next, you are told the schedule. The station has a rigid timetable as precise and unforgiving as any military barracks. The day is divided into two parts. In the daylight hours, the station serves common soldiers. At night, it is reserved for the officers. You are told the hours you are expected to be available, which is almost all of them. You are told when you will be given food, a thin soup and a bowl of rice twice a day. You are told when you will be allowed to use the washing facilities, a communal baths in the back of the compound. Then come the rules of conduct. You are not to refuse any customer. You are not to cry or make noise. You are not to leave your room unless it is your designated time for washing or eating. You are not to talk to the other girls about your past lives, about your families, about home. The punishment for breaking any of these rules is severe. The translator doesn't elaborate, but the cold look in her eyes tells you everything you need to know. These regulations were not universal across all comfort stations. They varied wildly from place to place, dictated by the temperament of the local commander or the house mother. Some surviving documents, discovered decades later, show meticulously detailed rulebooks, with specific opening hours, fee structures, and even guidelines on hygiene. Historians debate whether these documents represent a genuine attempt to create a semblance of order and prevent disease, or if they were merely a bureaucratic fiction, a way for the military to sanitize a brutal reality on paper and distance themselves from the rot root of what they were orchestrating. Finally, you are told about the money. This is perhaps the cruelest part of the deception. The translator explains that you will not be paid a salary. Instead, a debt has been assigned to you. The advance payment given to your father, the cost of your transportation, your food, your lodging, all of these have been tallied up. You are told that a portion of the fee paid by each soldier will go towards paying down this debt. Once the debt is paid, you will be free to go home. It is a lie, of course. A masterful, soul-crushing lie. The debt is impossibly large. The portion of the fees credited to your account is minuscule. The costs of your own upkeep are constantly added to the ledger, ensuring that the number never goes down, but only grows. It is a system of perpetual bondage, an accounting trick designed to extinguish the very hope of freedom. You don't understand the numbers, the complex logic of it all, but you understand the implication. You are trapped. The translator finishes her speech. She looks at you, her face unreadable. Do you understand? She asks. You can only nod, your throat too tight to speak. The house mother says something sharp, and they both turn to leave. Before she closes the door, the translator pauses and looks back at you. For a fleeting second, you think you see a flicker of something in her eyes, pity perhaps, or a shared, weary resignation. Just do what they say, she murmurs in your language, her voice barely a whisper. It is easier that way. Then the door closes and the bolt slides home again. The sound is even louder this time. The rules have been explained. The mistake has been clarified. This is your life now. The quiet, simple world of persimmons under ice paddies is a distant planet, a dream you once had. And in the heavy silence of your new reality, you finally begin to understand the true nature of the prison you have entered. You don't know how long you sit there on the edge of the thin mattress. Time has become a thick, syrupy substance. It no longer flows. It just is. The last sliver of evening light has faded from the small, high window, and the room is now draped in a deep, velvety darkness. Every small sound from outside the door is magnified: a man's cough, a coarse laugh, the clink of a bottle. You try not to listen. You try to think of home. You picture your mother's face, the way her eyes crinkle when she smiles. You whisper your own name, the name she gave you. It feels like a prayer, a secret anchor in this swirling sea of fear. The bolt on the door scrapes open again, and you flinch at the sudden sound. The house mother stands in the doorway, silhouetted by the yellow light of an oil lamp she holds in her hand. The light throws long, dancing shadows across the room. She says a single, sharp word. It is not your name. It is a sound, a collection of syllables you don't recognize. She says it again, this time with an impatient edge to her voice, and points at you. You realize with a jolt of cold dread that she is talking to you. That sound she made that is meant to be you. This was a standard, almost universally applied procedure in the comfort stations. Every girl, regardless of her origin, was stripped of her own name and assigned a Japanese one. Your name, the one that ties you to your ancestors, your family, your very sense of self, is deemed inconvenient, irrelevant. It is erased. The house mother gestures for you to repeat the new name. You try to form the syllables in your mouth, but your tongue feels thick and clumsy. The name is a smooth, polished stone that has no place in the landscape of your mouth. It comes out as a garbled whisper. She clicks her tongue in annoyance and says it one more time, slowly, deliberately, as one would teach a small child or a pet. And you understand that this is your first test. You must learn this new name. Your survival may depend on it. The names they gave were often deceptively gentle, almost poetic. They were names of flowers like Hanako flowered, or names evoking beauty and purity, like Kyoko, pure child. Sometimes they were names that simply sounded pleasant or were easy for the soldiers to remember. This practice adds a layer of grotesque irony to the entire system. These beautiful, delicate names, symbols of life and innocence, were being used as labels for objects, as brands on property. Why did they do this? The question is one that historians still ponder, sifting through the scant evidence. The most straightforward explanation is simple: brutal practicality. The comfort station system was a vast, multinational enterprise. You and the other girls come from all of the conquered territories. Your names are Korean, Chinese, Filipino, Indonesian. They are difficult for a Japanese soldier to pronounce, let alone remember. Japanese alias was an act of administrative convenience. It standardized the product, it made the bookkeeping easier. But many scholars argue that the purpose was far more sinister and psychologically profound. A name is the first and last bastion of identity. To take it away is to begin the process of unmaking a person. It severs your connection to your past. The girl from the village with the persimmon wreath ceases to exist. In her place is Hanako, a creature of the comfort station, someone with no history, no family, and no future beyond these walls. It's a costume you are forced to wear over your soul, and the intention is for you to eventually forget you are wearing it at all. It was a tool of control, a way to make you more compliant, to break your spirit from the inside out. The house mother is still there waiting. You try again, forcing the alien syllables past your lips. The sound is still wrong, but it's closer this time. She gives a curt nod, apparently satisfied for now. She sets a small, chipped bowl of rice and some pickled radish on the floor just inside the door, then turns and leaves without another word. The bolt slides shut. The darkness returns. You are alone again, with the new name echoing in the silence of the room. You whisper it to yourself. It feels like a lie. Then quieter still, you whisper your real name. The one your father said when he told you to be a good girl. You say it over and over, a desperate, silent mantra. You are not Kyoko. You are not Kyoko, you must not forget it. You cling to it as a drowning person clings to a piece of driftwood, knowing, with a terrifying certainty, that if you let it go, you will be lost forever. When the first pale light of morning filters through the high, grimy window, it doesn't bring with it the familiar comfort of a new day. It brings only illumination. It reveals the stark, cramped reality of your new home. In the forgiving darkness of the previous night, you could almost imagine you were somewhere else. But in the flat, grey light of dawn, there is no room for illusion. You sit up on the thin, lumpy mattress that serves as your bed, the rough fabric scratching against your skin. And you begin to explore. Not with your feet, there is nowhere to walk, but with your eyes. You begin to map the geography of this tiny room that has become your entire world. It's a box, a rather poorly constructed box at that. You could probably touch both side walls if you stretched out your arms. The walls themselves are thin wooden partitions, so flimsy you can hear every cough, every sigh, every muffled sob from the rooms on either side of you. They don't reach all the way to the ceiling, leaving a gap at the top. This design offers the illusion of a private space, but provides no actual privacy. It is a cell designed for maximum efficiency, not for human comfort. The floor is made of rough, splintery wooden planks. You can see the dark lines where dirt has been ground into the grain. The door is solid wood, with no window, only the heavy bolt on the outside. Opposite the door is the single window. It is small, high up on the wall, and covered with a wire mesh. It offers not a view of the world, but a sliver of sky, a patch of grey canvas that tells you if it is day or night, and nothing more. It is a window that reminds you that you are locked in. There is nothing else. No table, no chair. Just the mattress on the floor. There is a single nail hammered into the wall, perhaps for hanging a piece of clothing, though you have nothing to hang. The air in the room is still and stale. It tastes of dust and resignation. This setup, this tiny cubicle, was terrifyingly common. In many stations, especially those established quickly near the front lines, existing buildings were hastily subdivided into these small pens. The size and construction varied, of course. Some were slightly larger rooms in four marines, others were a little more than plywood stores in a hastily erected barracks. It's a detail that sparks a quiet debate among architectural historians of war. Did some quartermaster in a far-off city draw a neat blueprint for this misery, dictating the minimum square footage required to house a comfort woman? Or was it simply the result of local commanders and contractors improvising, finding the quickest, cheapest way to subdivide an existing building to maximize its capacity? The evidence suggests a chaotic mix of both a chilling blend of bureaucratic planning and pragmatic, on-the-ground cruelty. As your eyes adjust further, you notice one small, incongruous detail. Tacked to the wall beside where your mattress lies is a small, cheap, brightly colored calendar. It's from the previous year, its pages frozen on a month long past. It features a printed picture of a snow-capped mountain, perhaps the famous Mount Fuji, serene and impossibly distant, with cherry blossoms framing the scene. It feels like a joke in very poor taste. Who put it here? Or was it placed here by the administration? A feeble, almost insulting attempt at decoration. It's a tiny, mass-produced piece of a world that no longer includes you, a world of changing seasons, of holidays, of time that moves forward with purpose. Here time does not move forward, it just repeats. And you realize that the most important feature of the room's geography is not what is inside it, but what you can hear from outside it. The thin walls are not just a physical boundary, they're an acoustic membrane. You can hear the rhythmic tread of the guard walking his post in the compound. You can hear the house mother shouting an order in the hallway. You can hear the low murmur of soldiers' voices as they wait. The sounds map out the world beyond your door, a world that is always present, always pressing in. This tiny, shabby box is your map now. Your continent, your country, your village. You will learn its every feature, every crack in the wood, every stain on the floor, the exact quality of the light at different times of day. You will learn it because it is the only world you are allowed to have. And in this world, the most significant events are not marked on a calendar. They are marked by the sound of footsteps approaching your door. The rhythm of the station begins to impose itself upon you. It is not a gentle, natural rhythm like the seasons or the tides. It is a harsh, mechanical one, governed by the scraping of the bolt on your door. Your life, which was once your own, is now a series of interruptions. There is no longer a continuous thread of your own thoughts, your own time. There is only waiting. You learn to exist in the spaces between, the small, uncertain pockets of silence. You sit on your mattress back against the thin wall, and you wait. You are not waiting for anything good. You are simply waiting for the next thing to happen. It is a state of perpetual, low-grade anxiety, a constant tightening in your chest. You become a connoisseur of sounds. You learn to distinguish the heavy, confident tread of an officer from the shuffling, hesitant steps of a young recruit. You learn the sound of the food cart being wheeled down the hallway, its squeaky axle a brief, twice daily announcement of a meager sustenance. You learn the sound of the house mother's voice, sharp and scolding, and the lower, rumbling tones of the guards. These sounds are your new clock, your new calendar. They are the only markers of a day that has no sunrise or sunset you can see, only a gradual brightening and dimming of the grey light from the high window. The primary currency of this place is not money, despite the lie about your debt. The primary currency is time, but it is a currency you do not own. It is owned by the men who queue outside. The station functions with a brutal, almost industrial efficiency. Each soldier is allotted a specific, measured amount of time. Historians have found documents from some stations, tucked away in dusty archives, that detail these schedules with chilling precision. So many minutes for a private, a few more for a non-commissioned officer, a longer period for those of higher rank. It was a system designed to process as many men as possible, to maximize the utility of the women inside. You are a unit of time to be consumed, and so you wait. You try not to think about what you are waiting for. You try to empty your mind, to make it a blank, smooth stone. You trace the patterns in the wood grain on the floor with your eyes. You count the number of planks from the door to the wall. You fold and refold the corner of your thin blanket. You do anything to keep your mind from spiraling into the blackness of what is to come. Sometimes in the quiet moments, you hear whispers from the next room. A soft, stifled sob. A few words murmured in a language you don't understand. It is a strange kind of intimacy, this shared suffering. You are closer to these unknown girls on the other side of the wall than you have ever been to anyone, and yet you have never seen their faces. You are all waiting for the same thing, in your identical boxes. One of the more peculiar and cruel aspects of this waiting was the use of tokens or tickets. In many stations, soldiers would purchase a ticket from the station's administrative office. This ticket would then be presented to the house mother, or sometimes directly to the woman herself, as proof of payment. It was another layer of bureaucracy, another way to transform a human interaction into a sterile, commercial transaction. It reduced you from a person to a service that had been prepaid. The act of a man handing you a small, printed piece of paper before the assault began is an absurdity that the mind can barely comprehend. It is the logic of a machine, not of humanity, but you do not know about the grand, overarching system. You only know your small, suffocating corner of it. You only know that when you hear the footsteps stop outside your door, your breath catches in your throat. You know the sound of the bolt being drawn back. It is a sound that will be etched into your memory, a sound you will hear in your nightmares for the rest of your life. The door opens. A man stands there, a silhouette against the dim light of the hallway. You cannot see his face. It doesn't matter. Here's the end of the waiting. And in that moment, you learn the most important lesson of this place. You must make yourself disappear. You must retreat to a small, secret corner of your own mind, a place he cannot reach. You must become a ghost in your own body, even as you are still in it. And the bolt is shot home again. You must find your way back to yourself, piece by broken piece, and you must begin to wait again. One afternoon, several weeks after your arrival, or perhaps it's been months, it's hard to tell, the house mother comes to your room. This is unusual. Her visits are normally brief, functional, and unpleasant. But this time, she has a ledger with her, a thick, cloth-bound book, and the woman who acts as a translator. She motions for you to sit. This feels formal, almost official, and a knot of dread tightens in your stomach. The translator begins to explain in her customary flat tone the state of your account. The numbers she recites are a dizzying blur. The initial advance paid to your family, a sum that seemed like a fortune at the time, is listed as the opening balance of your debt. Then charges are added. A fee for your transportation. A fee for the rough cotton garment you were given to wear. A daily fee for your food, the twice daily bowls of thin soup and rice. A fee for the use of the mattress in the room. Even the small piece of soap you are given at the communal bathish has a price attached to it. The ledger is a work of fiction, a cruel and intricate fantasy. It is an economic prison built on top of the physical one. The fees are arbitrarily inflated. Your debt is not a real number to be paid down. It is a weight designed to crush your spirit, to extinguish the last embers of hope for freedom. The translator then points to another column in the ledger. This, she explains, is your earnings. For every soldier you serve, a small amount is credited to your name. A pittance. The numbers are a mockery. A soldier might pay, for example, 2 yen for a visit. Of that, the military administration takes a cut. The house mother takes a cut. The remainder is split, with a portion going to your supposed savings, a fund you will never see, and an even smaller portion being applied to your debt. You look at the neat columns of numbers, the precise, elegant script. It all looks so official, so logical, but it is the logic of a predator. You realize that at this rate, you could be here for 100 years and never pay off what they claim you owe. It is a closed system from which there is no mathematical escape. The existence and nature of these debt contracts are a key point of contention for historians and activists. Apologists for the system have sometimes pointed to these ledgers as proof that the women were not slaves, but were instead contracted laborers, prostitutes who were simply working off a debt. It is a grotesque distortion of the truth. True contracts require consent, and you gave none. True debt can be repaid. This was designed to be infinite. The discovery of these ledgers in post-war archives provided not evidence of a legitimate business, but a paper trail of a meticulously documented system of enslavement. The house mother says something, and the translator relays the message. She is telling you that you are not working hard enough, that your debt is growing, not shrinking, that you must be more cooperative, more enthusiastic, so that more soldiers will choose your room. It is a threat veiled as financial advice. This is another layer of the psychological manipulation. The system is designed not only to trap you, but to make you feel complicit in your own imprisonment. If you could just be a better comfort woman, you could pay off your debt. Your freedom, the lie suggests, is in your own hands. It is a way of shifting the blame from the captors to the captive. You stare at the page in the ledger. Your new Japanese name is written at the top, a name you still hate. Underneath it, this fantasy of finance, the story of numbers that adds up to a life sentence. You feel a surge of something hot and bitter in your chest. It is not just fear. It is rage, a helpless, silent rage. You want to scream, to tear the book from her hands and rip out the pages. You want to tell her that this is all a lie, that you were stolen from your home, that you owe them nothing. But you do nothing. You drop your eyes to the floor and nod, as if you understand, as if you agree. You have already learned the most important rule of survival in this place. Do not fight back. To do so would be to invite a punishment far worse than this cold, calculated cruelty. So you play your part in their fiction. You accept the illusion of the debt. The house mother seems satisfied with your silent compliance. She closes the ledger with a neat snap, says a final, sharp word, and she and the translator leave. The bolt slides shut. You are left alone with the ghost of those numbers, the weight of a debt that can never be paid. The lie is now official, written down in a book, and you know with a certainty that chills you to the bone that they have no intention of ever letting you go. Once a week, usually on a designated morning, a different kind of rhythm asserts itself in the station. The usual business is suspended. There is a strange, tense quiet in the hallways. This is the day of the doctor's visit. You are led out of your room, not alone, but in a small, silent group with the other girls from your section of the hallway. You walk, single file, to a separate room at the back of the house, a place that has been designated as the infirmary. It is a cold, sterile space, smelling sharply of antiseptic. There is a metal examination table in the center of the room and a small cabinet with glass doors, behind which you can see bottles of medicine and metal instruments. The doctor is usually a military medical officer. He is not here out of a sense of compassion for your well-being. He is here as an agent of military efficiency. His job is not to heal you, but to inspect you. He is here to ensure that the equipment is in working order. You wait in a line, your thin cotton shift doing little to ward off the chill of the room. You do not look at each other. Each of you is locked in your own private bubble of dread. When it is your turn, you are subjected to a quick, humiliating live public examination. The procedure is invasive, rough, and performed with a cold, detached indifference. The doctor is not checking for your comfort or your pain. He is checking for signs of venereal disease. This was the great, overriding fear of the Japanese military command, that their comfort system would become a vector for diseases that could cripple their army. From a purely military perspective, a soldier incapacitated by syphilis was as useless as one felled by a bullet. Therefore, the health of the comfort women was a matter of strategic importance. Their bodies were a potential threat to the fighting force, and that threat to be managed. Surviving medical logs from some stations paint a chilling picture of this process. They record the women not by their real names, but by their assigned Japanese aliases. Beside each name are notes, clinical and brief. Condition good or requires treatment. Sometimes a diagnosis is recorded. This cold, bureaucratic record-keeping is a stark reminder that you are not seen as a patient to be cared for, but as a potential contagion to be contained. If you are found to be infected, you are treated. This often involved painful injections of mercury or arsenic-based compounds like sulfasan, the early brutal treatments for syphilis. These injections were notoriously agonizing and had severe side effects. The goal was not to cure you for your own sake, but to render you non-contagious as quickly as possible so you could be returned to service. What happens if a woman becomes pregnant? This question is one of the darkest corners of the system, and one where the historical record is often deliberately vague. Testimonies from survivors are harrowing. Pregnancies were a disruption to the station's function. They were an administrative problem to be solved. In most cases, the result was a forced, often brutal, abortion, performed by the station doctor or sometimes by the house mother herself, with no regard for the woman's health or life. In some rarer cases, a woman might be allowed to carry the baby to term, only to have it taken from her immediately after birth. The fate of these children is a historical void, a question so painful that few records even allude to it. The doctor finishes his examination of you. He says something to his assistant, who makes a mark in a ledger next to your Japanese name. You are lucky today. You are motioned away from the table and told to get dressed. As you are leaving the room, you pass the girl who was ahead of you in line. She is being told to wait. She has not been so lucky. She stands by the wall, her face ashen, her eyes wide with a terror you understand completely. You don't dare to look at her for more than a second. Pity is a dangerous emotion here. Solidarity is a crime. You hurry back to your room, your heart pounding with a mixture of relief and guilt. You are locked back in your cell. The brief, cold exposure to the world outside your room is over. You are healthy, but you don't feel healthy. You feel like a piece of meat that has been inspected and stamped for approval. The doctor's visit is not about health. It is another ritual of dehumanization, a weekly reminder that your body is not your own. It is a piece of military property, to be maintained and managed for the benefit of the Emperor's army. In the suffocating silence of the night, when the business of the station has finally ceased and a fragile, temporary peace descends, you discover a new and secret landscape. It is a landscape made of sound. The thinness of the walls, which in the daytime transmits only sounds of dread and activity, now becomes a conduit for something else entirely. You lie on your mattress in the pitch black listening. At first all you hear is the familiar symphony of a shared troubled sleep. A sigh from the room on your left, the rustle of a blanket from the room on your right, a soft, sleepy cough from somewhere down the hall. These are the sounds of bodies exhausted and at rest. But if you listen more closely, you can sometimes hear more. A whisper. It is faint, barely audible, a soft current of air through a crack in the wall. It is the girl in the next room. You don't know her name, not her real one. You don't know what she looks like. But you know the sound of her breathing. You know the sound of her quiet weeping after the door has been bolted for the last time. One night, you hear her whisper a word. A name. Not a Japanese name, but one from her own language, your language. She says the name of a village, a place famous for its sweet pears. A place not far from your own home. Your heart gives a painful jolt. You are not from the same village, but you are from the same small corner of the world. Hesitantly, your own throat dry, you whisper back. You say the name of your village. You say the word for persimmon. A long silence follows. You think perhaps she didn't hear you, or that she is too afraid to answer. But then, a soft whisper comes back through the wall. I remember persimmons. And so begins a fragile, secret conversation pieced together from single words, from half-forgotten memories, from the names of foods and festivals. You talk about the taste of your mother's kimchi. She talks about the color of the mountains in spring. You describe the creek where you used to catch minnows. She describes the market where her father sold his pears. You never speak of the present. You never speak of the soldiers, the pain, the fear. This is a sacred, protected space. Your whispers are building a bridge back to the world you lost. You are re-smelling your identity, piece by piece, by sharing the memories that they have tried to erase. You are reminding each other that you are not Hanako or Yoshiko. You are the girl who loved persimmons. She is the girl whose father grew sweet pears. These acts of quiet solidarity were a vital, though incredibly risky, form of survival. The station's rules explicitly forbade the women from forming friendships, from speaking in their native languages, from sharing personal histories. The administration knew instinctively that community breeds resistance. To keep the women isolated and alienated from one another was a key tactic of control. Historians and sociologists who have studied survivor testimonies often point to these secret networks as a crucial psychological lifeline. The ability to connect with another human being, to have your identity validated, to share a common cultural touchstone, even something as simple as the name of a favorite food, was a powerful act of defiance. It was a way of saying, I am still here. They have not unmade me yet. Of course, the nature of these relationships varied. Sometimes, as with the girl next to you, it was a bond of shared origin. But often, the stations were a chaotic mix of nationalities. A Korean girl might find herself bunked between a girl from China and another from the Philippines. In these cases, communication was far more difficult, relying on broken gestures, a handful of shared Japanese words, or simply the universal language of a shared glance of sympathy in the washroom. Whether these cross-cultural bonds of solidarity were common or rare is a difficult question for historians to answer, as it relies entirely on the fragmented, personal memories of individual survivors. Your whispered conversations through the wall become the most important part of your day. They are a tiny, secret garden that you tend together in the dark. It is a dangerous garden. If the house mother or a guard were to hear you, the punishment would be swift and severe. But it is a risk you are both willing to take. You learn that her name is Sujin. You tell her your name's a forbidden litany in the dark, and for a few precious hours each night, in the space created by your whispers, you cease to be numbers on a ledger. You are two girls from a land of mountains and sweet fruit, huddled together in the dark, keeping the memory of home alive, one whispered word at a time. One night, the whispering stops. You lie in the dark, straining your ears, but there is only silence from Su Jae-in's room. A new, sharper fear grips you. Has she been moved? Is she sick? Has she been caught? The silence is a heavy blanket, more suffocating than any sound could be. Then you hear it. It is not a whisper. It is a sound so faint, so delicate. You think at first you are imagining it. It is the thread of a melody. A tune hums softly, hesitantly, as if the singer is afraid of the sound of her own breath. You recognize the song instantly. It is a rearing. It is not a soldier's anthem or a patriotic march. It is a folk song, ancient and deeply woven into the fabric of your homeland. It is a song of sorrow, of longing, of a left behind, of a difficult mountain pass that must be crossed. Every child knows this song. You learned it at your mother's knee. It is the sound of your people, the unofficial anthem of a nation's heartache. To sing it here, in this place, is an act of unimaginable bravery. It is a protest so quiet it could be mistaken for the sighing of the wind, but so profound it shakes the very foundations of your prison. The rules forbid speaking your own language. Singing a song from your homeland is an even greater crime. It is a declaration of an identity they are trying to extinguish. You press your ear to the thin wall, your heart aching with a mixture of terror and strange, fierce pride for this girl you have never seen. Her humming is not perfect. It wavers, catching in her throat, but she persists. She is not singing for an audience. She is singing for herself. She is singing to remember who she is. She is crossing the rearing pass in her mind, leaving this place behind, if only for the length of a single verse. Music as a form of resistance in situations of extreme oppression is a well-documented phenomenon. In prisons, in concentration camps, and slave quarters, people have always found ways to sing. Music is portable. It can carry complex emotions and cultural memories in a way that simple words cannot. For the comfort women, a shared folk song like a rirang for the Koreans, or mo li hua for the Chinese, became a secret, coded language of solidarity. Whether such acts were common is, like so much else about the daily life in the stations, a matter of speculation for historians, pieced together from the anecdotal evidence of survivor testimonies. Many survivors never spoke of such things, perhaps because the memory was too painful or because such moments of defiance were radically rare. But for those who did remember, the memory of a shared song was often a pivotal moment in their story of survival. Slowly, carefully, your own throat tight with emotion, you begin to hum along. Your voice is barely a breath of sound, a ghost of a melody harmonizing with hers through the wall. You are no longer two isolated prisoners. You are a choir of two. You are a choir of two. Your combined humming is still quieter than a man's snoring, but it feels like you are shouting. You are singing your existence back into a world that is trying to deny it. The song is a bomb, but it is also a source of deep, soul-crushing sadness. It reminds you of everything you have lost. You see your mother's face, you smell the persimmons drying in the sun. You feel the familiar mud of the path to the village between your toes. The melody is a key that unlocks a floodgate of memories, and tears begin to stream silently down your face, soaking into your thin mattress. They are not tears of despair, but tears of remembrance. Tears that prove you are still human, still capable of feeling the pain of your own loss. Su Jae-in's humming falters for a moment, and you know that she is crying too. But then, she picks up the melody again, her voice a little stronger this time, as if your quiet harmony has given her courage. You continue to sing together, your two soft voices weaving a thread of shared humanity in the oppressive darkness. You do not know it, but perhaps somewhere down the hall, another girl is lying awake and listening. And perhaps she too recognizes the tune. And perhaps in the safety of her own cell, she begins to hum along, her voice joining the secret, invisible choir. The song of defiance, a quiet river of sorrow and strength, flowing through the cracks in the walls of the house with no name. The men who come to your room are not individuals. You learn this very quickly. They are a single entity, a relentless, churning wave that crashes against the shore of your small room, recedes, and then crashes again. Trying to distinguish one from another is a pointless, painful exercise. It is better to see them as a uniform. And that is what they are. A collection of identical olive-drab uniforms, smelling of sweat, cheap liquor, and the damp wool they are made from. They have the same haircuts, the same tired, rough faces. They speak in the same clipped, guttural commands. To look for the person inside the uniform is to invite a kind of pain your mind cannot afford. So you don't. You look at a point on the wall, just over their shoulder. You focus on the single nail hammered into the wood. You make the man a faceless uniform, an object just as he has made you one. This dehumanization is a two-way street, a necessary psychological defense. They see you not as a girl with a name and a past, but as Hanako, a function, a utility. And you, in turn, must see them not as men who might have mothers, sisters, or daughters of their own, but as a collective, impersonal force. To imagine their humanity is to shatter your own defenses. The soldiers themselves were a cross-section of the Japanese Imperial Army. They were young farm boys, barely older than you, their faces still soft with youth, their eyes wide with the fear and confusion of their first deployment. They were hardened veterans, their faces etched with the brutality of the campaigns in China, their movements efficient and devoid of any emotion. They were officers older, colder, who saw their visits as a perquisite of rank, a right they were owed. A quiet debate exists among military historians and sociologists about the mindset of the average soldier who used these stations. Were they all monsters, or were many of them just ordinary and brutalizing system, conditioned by a military culture that promoted a sense of entitlement and saw on Japanese people as inherently inferior? Some survivor testimonies recall moments of unexpected, fleeting kindness, a soldier who gave them a piece of candy, one who spoke to them gently, or even one who simply left without touching them. These moments are rare, confusing exceptions that defy easy categorization. They don't excuse the system, but they complicate the narrative, reminding us that the line between victim and perpetrator can sometimes be blurry and uncomfortable. For you, however, these subtle distinctions are a luxury. An act of kindness can be as confusing and terrifying as an act of brutality. The uniform is the only reality that matters. Sometimes you can guess where they have come from. If they are covered in mud and their eyes have a hollow, haunted look, they are fresh from the front lines. They are often rougher, more desperate, seeking a release from a terror you can only imagine. Other times they are clean, their uniforms neat, and they smell of soap. These are men from the rear echelons, the administrators, the mechanics. They are often quieter, more methodical. You learn to read the small signs. The ones who are drunk are the most unpredictable. Their moods can swing from maudlin sentimentality to explosive violence in an instant. The young ones are often the most nervous, their bravado a thin mask for their inexperience. The older officers of ownership, as if they are merely using a piece of government-issued equipment. You do not speak to them. You do not have the words, and they do not want to hear them. You are an object for their use, and objects are silent. You simply endure. You retreat to that quiet, protected space deep inside your mind, the one they cannot find. You hum a rearing silently, a song only you can hear. You think of Sujin in the next room, and you know she is doing the same. You are both enduring the same faceless uniform at the same time. After they are gone, after the door is bolted, you are left with the lingering smell of them in your small room. It is a smell you learn to hate, a smell that clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. You lie there and wait for the smell to fade, for the memory of the uniform to recede. It never fades completely. It just becomes a part of the air you breathe. You learn that there is no single enemy. The enemy is not one man, or even 100 men. The enemy is the uniform. It is the system that sends the uniform to your door. It is a vast impersonal machine, and you are just one small, broken cog caught in its gears. And the machine, you are beginning to realize, is everywhere. It is the walls, the lock, the doctor, the ledger, the faceless uniforms. The language of the station is a weapon. It is a constant, grating reminder of your powerlessness. Every command, every instruction, Every curse is delivered in a language that is not your own. At first, the words are just a stream of harsh, incomprehensible sounds. But you are a quick study. You have to be. Survival depends on understanding. You begin to learn the words, not through lessons or patient instruction, but through brutal, repetitive necessity. You learn the word for water when you are thirsty. You learn the word for hurry when you are being herded to the bathish. You learn the words for clean this and be quiet and lie down. These are the building blocks of your new vocabulary, a lexicon of submission. You learn to read the meaning in the tone in the gesture that accompanies the word. A sharp, high-pitched command from the house mother means one thing. A low, slurred word from a drunken soldier means something else entirely. You become an expert in nonverbal communication, a skill you never knew you had. Your life depends on correctly interpreting a narrowed eye, a clenched fist, an impatient eye. Misunderstanding is not an option. A failure to comply, whether intentional or not, is met with immediate, often violent, correction. This linguistic domination was a core component of the imperial project. Forcing conquered peoples to speak the language of the colonizer is a classic to love control. It reinforces the power dynamic every minute of every day. It makes the captor the sole purveyor of meaning and reduces the captive to a state of linguistic infancy, struggling to understand the simplest commands. In the multi-ethnic environment of the comfort station, this created a complex and sometimes bizarre linguistic landscape. The primary language of power was, of course, Japanese. The house mother and the soldiers spoke it, but what about the women themselves? A station might house Korean, Chinese, Filipino, and Indonesian women all at once. How did they communicate with each other? This is a question that fascinates historical linguists who study contact languages or pidgins that emerge in such environments. The most likely scenario is that a crude, functional pidgin developed a mixture of Japanese commands, words from the women's various native languages, and a lot of sign language. A Korean girl might learn a few essential words in Mandarin from the girl in the next room, just as she was forced to learn the Japanese words for yes and no. It was a language born of shared trauma, a secret, hybrid tongue used for the brief, stolen moments of connection in the washroom or the food line. You, however, are focused on the language of your captors. You learn to listen with an intensity you have never known. You learn to anticipate the commands before they are even spoken. You learn the difference between the formal, polite Japanese used in official announcements and the coarse, slang-filled language of the common soldiers. The words themselves are like stones thrown at you. They are hard, sharp, and they leave a bruise. You learn to say yes in their language har. It becomes a reflex. It is the safest word. It is a shield. You say it whether you understand or not, whether you agree or not. Hi. It is the sound of your own surrender. A sound you make a dozen times a day. One day an officer is in your room. He is older, and unlike the others, he seems to want to talk. He points to the faded, year-old calendar on your wall. The one with the picture of the mountain. He says a word. Fuji-san. He points to the cherry blossoms. Sakura. He seems to be trying to teach you, to share a piece of his world with you. The moment is deeply unsettling. It is a crack in the brutal facade. It is a glimpse of the man inside the uniform, a man who appreciates the beauty of a mountain, the delicacy of a flower. You just nod and say hi. You do not want his words. You do not want his lesson. His language, whether it is naming a flower or shouting a command, is the language of your prison. It is the sound of the cage. After he leaves, you look at the calendar. Fuji-san, Sakura. You now have names for these things, but they are not your names. In your language, the mountain has a different name. The flower has a different name. You whisper the words from your own language, the true names. You do it quietly, defiantly. It is a small, secret act, but you can still remember your own. And as long as you can remember the true names for things, a part of you remains unconnected. In a world where everything has been taken from you, your home, your family, your name, even the clothes you arrived in, the instinct to possess something. Anything becomes a powerful primal urge. You need an anchor, a small tangible piece of reality that belongs only to you, a secret. Your secret is a button. It's a small plain thing, made of mother of pearl. It came off the cuff of the dress you were wearing when you arrived, the one your mother made for you. When the house mother confiscated your belongings, the button must have fallen unnoticed onto the dusty floor of your room. You found it later that night, your fingers closing around its cool, smooth surface in the dark. It was a miracle. A tiny, overlooked fragment of your past life. You hide it with the cunning of a master spy. During the day, it lives in a small crack in the wooden wall behind your mattress, a space so narrow that only your smallest finger can push it in or retrieve it. At night, you hold it in your closed fist as you sleep. Its familiar circular shape is a comfort in the darkness, a solid point in a world that has dissolved into fear and uncertainty. This button is not just a button. It is a vessel of memory. When you touch it, you can feel the texture of your mother's dress. You can remember her hands as she sewed it, her head bent in concentration. You can remember the pride you felt when you wore it for the first time. The button connects you to the girl you were, the girl who lived in a valley that smelled of persimmons. It is proof that she was real. This practice of keeping small, hidden talismans was a common survival strategy in many situations of extreme deprivation, from prisons to concentration camps. A pebble, a scrap of cloth, a photograph that has been miraculously concealed, these objects take on an immense psychological importance. They are linked to a personal history that the oppressors are trying to erase. They are a declaration of individuality in the face of forced conformity. Anthropologists who study the material culture of prisoners and captives call these items transitional objects. They provide a sense of comfort and continuity in a life that has been violently disrupted. For the comfort women whose bodies were being treated as object, owning a secret object of their own was a powerful, if silent, act of reclamation. It was a way of saying, this body may be a prison, but I still have a secret world that you cannot enter. The risk of being discovered is immense. You know that if the house mother were to find the button during one of her and room inspections, it would be confiscated. Worse, you would be punished for the simple act of possessing it. The button is contraband, not because it is dangerous, but because it is personal. And in this place, the personal is forbidden. Su-jin, your friend on the other side of the wall, has a secret too. One night, in your whispered conversation, she tells you about it. Hers is not a button, but a small, red ribbon, no bigger than your thumb. It was from her hair. She keeps it tied around her toe, hidden beneath the hem of her shift. You never speak of these things again. The knowledge that you both have a secret is enough. It is another invisible thread that binds you together. Historians often struggle to document these small, intensely personal acts of resistance. They don't appear in official military records or administrative ledgers. They exist only in the memories of the survivors. Some testimonies mention these hidden treasures, while others do not. Perhaps some women had nothing, or perhaps the memory is too private, too painful to share. It remains a quiet, speculative corner of the historical narrative, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of absolute dehumanization. One day, a soldier in your room is rougher than usual. After he leaves, you lie on the mattress, your body trembling, feeling a familiar wave of dissociation begin to wash over you. You feel yourself starting to float away, to disappear. But then, you reach for the button. You slide your finger into the crack in the wall and touch its smooth, cool surface. You hold it tight in your palm, its sharp edge pressing into your skin. And the feeling of it, the solid reality of it, brings you back. It is your anchor. It reminds you that you are not just a body. You are a person who owns a secret button, and that small, simple fact is enough to keep you from drifting away completely. A new fear begins to creep into the station, a fear that is different from the daily, grinding dread you have grown accustomed to. It is a silent, insidious fear that you feel in your own body, a persistent ache in your lower back, a strange, burning sensation, a weariness that sinks deep into your bones and cannot be cured by sleep. Sickness is a constant, looming presence in the house with no name. The very nature of the station makes it a perfect incubator for disease. You are underfed, overworked, and living in a state of perpetual stress that weakens your body's defenses. The conditions are often insanitary, and you are being subjected to a relentless series of physical assaults that leave you vulnerable to a host of illnesses. The most obvious and terrifying threat is venereal disease. You have seen what happens to the girls who are diagnosed by the doctor during his weekly inspections. You have seen the fear in their eyes, heard the muffled sounds of their pain as they are given the harsh, mercury-based treatments. You live in constant terror of being next. Every small, unfamiliar twinge in your body sends a jolt of panic through you. But there are other sicknesses too. Sicknesses the doctor does not name and does not treat. There are the chronic infections, the internal injuries, the constant debilitating pain that becomes a part of your daily existence. You learn to live with it, to push it to the back of your mind, because to complain is to invite punishment or, worse, to be deemed unfit for service, a designation whose consequences you cannot begin to imagine. And then there is the sickness of the mind. The trauma of your experience is a poison that seeps into every corner of your consciousness. You have trouble sleeping, and when you do, your dreams are filled with faceless uniforms and the sound of a bolt sliding shut. During the day, you find your mind going blank for long stretches of time, a merciful disappearance that is also deeply frightening. You are losing pieces of yourself, and you don't know how to get them back. The historical record on the health of the comfort women is both horrifully clear and frustratingly incomplete. Military medical records, when they exist, focus almost exclusively on the management of venereal diseases, because that was the primary concern of the army. But what about the other health consequences? The gynecological trauma, the infertility, the chronic pain, the psychological damage. These were of no concern to the military, and so they went unrecorded. The history of this suffering is not written in official documents. It is written on the bodies and in the minds of the women who survived. Decades later, when survivors began to give their testimonies, they spoke of lifelong health problems, physical and mental, that were a direct result of their time in the stations. Many were never able to have children. Many suffered from what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition that was not even named, let alone understood at the time. One morning you wake up burning with fever. Your body is slick with a cold sweat, and a wave of nausea washes over you. You know you are sick. You try to hide it. You force yourself to stand, to walk to the food line, but the effort makes the small room spin. The house mother sees you stumble, her eyes narrow. She feels your forehead with the back of her hand, a gesture that is not gentle or caring, but diagnostic. You are taken to the infirmary, not for treatment, but for isolation. You are put in a small, windowless room in the back of the building, a place you have never seen before. You are given a bucket of water and a piece of bread, and the door is locked. You lie there on a thin mat, drifting in and out of a delirious haze. You don't know what sickness you have. No one tells you. You are simply a broken piece of equipment that has been set aside. You lie there for days. You lie there for days. Your only human contact is the hand that pushes a bowl of thin gruel through a slot in the door twice a day. You are terrified that you are going to die here, alone, in this forgotten room. But slowly, miraculously, the fever breaks. Your body, young and resilient, fights back. One morning, you wake up and the world is no longer spinning. You are weak, but you are alive. A few days later, the doctor inspects you and declares you fit. You are sent back to your room. Sujin, in a whispered conversation that night, tells you that she thought you were gone forever. The sickness no one names has passed, but it has left its mark. You are weaker now, and the fear of illness has a new, sharper edge. You have learned that in this place, your body is not your most dangerous and unpredictable enemy. You have grown accustomed, in a grim sort of way, to the suffocating sameness of your life. The same room, the same routine, the same cycle of waiting and enduring. The station, for all its horror, has become a known quantity, but the war is not static. It is a living, breathing monster, and its movements are unpredictable. One day, the familiar rhythm is shattered. There is a new kind of activity in the compound, a sense of hurried, anxious energy. Soldiers are packing crates, loading trucks. The house mother is shouting orders more sharply than usual. Rumors begin to fly, whispered in the washroom, passed in fearful glances down the hallway. The front line is shifting. The enemy is getting closer. The army is moving, and you are moving with it. You are given no warning. You are simply told to gather the few possessions you have, which is nothing, and are herded out of your room. You stand blinking in the harsh sunlight of the courtyard, a place you have only ever seen in brief glimpses. You and the other girls are loaded into the back of a canvas-covered truck, the same kind that brought you here what feels like a lifetime ago. The gate of the compound is thrown open, and with a lurch, you are back on the road. This was the grim reality for countless comfort women, especially those serving in stations close to active combat zones. They were not in a fixed location. They were part of the military's logistical tail, a mobile asset to be deployed and redeployed as the strategic situation demanded. When the Japanese army advanced, new stations were established in their wake. When they retreated, the women were packed up and moved with them, dragged ever deeper into the chaos of a failing war. The journey is a disorienting nightmare, even worse than the first one. The roads are rutted and sometimes barely passable. The sound of distant artillery is a constant, dull thud on the horizon. Sometimes you travel at night, without lights, to avoid being seen from the air. You are packed into the back of the truck, jolted and thrown with every bump in the road. There is no privacy, no sanitation. You are treated not like people, but like a cargo of ammunition or rations. Historians tracing the paths of these mobile comfort stations face a daunting task. The movements were often chaotic, responding to the fluid, unpredictable nature of the battlefield. Records, if they were kept at all, were often lost or destroyed in the retreats. The story of these journeys is pieced together from the scattered, fragmented memories of survivors who can recall the name of a town they passed. It is a geography of trauma, mapped out not on paper, but in the memories of those who were forced to endure it. After several days of travel, you arrive at a new location. It is a half-bombed town, a collection of skeletal buildings and rubble-strewn streets. The new station is a hastily converted tea house, its delicate paper screens torn and its fine wooden floors scuffed by military boots. The rooms are even smaller than before, the conditions even more primitive. There is no running water. The fence around this new compound is made of salvaged barbed wire. And the men are different. They are fresh from battle, their uniforms caked in mud, their eyes filled with a terrifying mixture of exhaustion and adrenaline. The veneer of military discipline that existed at the previous station is gone. This place is raw, more dangerous, closer to the raw, bleeding edge of the war. The thin, fragile sense of order has completely dissolved. You are assigned a new room, a new number, but nothing else is new. The routine begins again, but with a new frantic intensity. The sound of gunfire is no longer a distant rumor, it is a sharp crackle in the air just beyond the fence. The ground shudders from explosions that feel closer every day. You have been moved from one cage to another, but this cage is rattling apart. Your prison is on the move, and it is dragging you with it across a landscape of destruction. You feel a new kind of despair settle over you. Before, there was at least the illusion of stability. Now, there is only the chaos of the war. You realize that your fate is tied, inextricably, to the fate of this army, and for the first time, you begin to understand that the army might not be invincible, which has been the backdrop to your suffering, is now coming to the forefront, and you are trapped in the middle of it. The thought is a dangerous seed planted in the fertile ground of your despair. At the old station, the one that felt so permanent, the idea of escape was a distant, impossible fantasy. The walls were solid, the guards were vigilant, the world outside was an unknown territory. But here, in this chaotic, half-ruined town, things are different. The fence is just a tangle of wire. The guards are distracted, their attention focused on the sounds of the approaching battle. The world outside is no longer a foreign country, it is a war zone. The seed begins to sprout. The dream of the fence becomes a constant, obsessive companion. You find yourself studying it during your brief, supervised trips to the wash house. You note the places where the wire is loose, the section of the wall that has crumbled, the blind spot in the guard's patrol route. You begin to hoard scraps of food from your meager meals, hiding them in a corner of your mattress. You are not just thinking about it anymore. You whisper your thoughts to Soothe in through the wall. At first, she is terrified. She begs you not to talk about it, not even to think about it. The stories of what happens to girls who are caught are the stuff of nightmares. They are the cautionary tales the house mother uses to maintain control. A public beating, starvation, or worse. The punishments are designed not just to harm the individual, but to terrorize everyone else into submission. But the seed of your idea has been planted in her mind too. The sounds of the war are getting closer every day. The station, which was supposed to be a place of safety for the soldiers, is beginning to feel like a trap. What will happen to you when the enemy arrives? Will the army protect you, or will they abandon you? Or in a final, horrific act of tidying up, will they simply eliminate the evidence of their crimes? This last, unspoken fear hangs in the air between you. The question of escape is one of the most fraught and painful topics in the history of the comfort women. How many tried? How many tried? How many succeeded? That is not something the military would ever document. And for the survivors it is a complicated memory. For those who never tried, there can be a lingering sense of guilt or shame, a feeling that they should have been braver. For those who did try and were caught, the memory is one of unimaginable trauma. The academic consensus, based on the available testimonies, is that successful escapes were exceedingly rare. You're in a foreign land where you do not speak the language. You have no money, no identity papers. Your face marks you as a foreigner. Even if you made it past the fence, where would you go? How would you survive in a war-torn landscape, filled with suspicious civilians and enemy soldiers? The comfort station, for all its horror, was a known entity. The world outside was a terrifying unknown. But your desperation is growing stronger than your fear. You and Soojin begin to make a plan. A simple, desperate plan. During the confusion of the next artillery barrage when the guards are taking cover, you will make a run for the loose section of the fence at the back of the compound. You will help each other through. And then you will run. You will run towards the sound of the guns, hoping that the advancing army, whoever they are, will be less of a threat than the one that has imprisoned you. The night you choose is dark and moonless. The air is heavy with the smell of rain and cordite. A distant barrage begins, a low, rolling thunder. You hear the guards shouting, the sound of their boots running for cover. This is it. This is the moment. You exchange a final, whispered word with Soojin. Together, you slide the bolt of your door open. It's flimsy, easily jimmied. You slip out into the darkened hallway. You are halfway to the back door when you hear a sound. A floorboard creaks in the darkness ahead of you. It is the house mother. She is standing there, a shadow in the shadows, as if she was waiting for you. She doesn't scream or shout. She simply makes a low, guttural sound. A guard appears from the darkness behind her. He carries a thick piece of wood. The dream of the fence dissolves in a wave of cold, absolute terror. You are caught. And now, the stories you have heard about what happens to girls who try to escape are about to become your reality. The end of the war does not arrive like a liberating hero on a white horse. It comes as a faint, crackling voice from a radio. After you were caught, the punishment was swift and brutal. But you survived. Soojin survived. You were separated, put in rooms at opposite ends of the station, your secret line of communication severed. The weeks that followed were a blur of pain and a deeper, more profound despair. The dream of escape was dead, and with it, the last flicker of hope. You resigned yourself to the idea that you would die in this place. But then, one sweltering afternoon in the middle of August, something strange happens. The usual brutal rhythm of the station comes to a sudden halt. The soldiers who were scheduled to visit are turned away. The guards seem agitated, confused. They gather in small groups in the courtyard, talking in low, urgent tones. You can feel a seismic shift in the atmosphere of the place. The air, usually thick with dread, is now humming with a new, unfamiliar frequency. Through the high window of your room, you hear the sound of a radio being played in the main office. It is broadcasting a speech. The voice is high-pitched, formal, and spoken in a dialect you have never heard before. But you can tell, from the funereal tone, but it is important. Later you will learn that this was the voice of the emperor himself, announcing the surrender of Japan. It was the first time the vast majority of his subjects, including the soldiers in your compound, had ever heard his voice. For you, the words are meaningless, but their effect is immediate and dramatic. A profound, stunned silence falls over the compound. The machine has stopped. The guards, the soldiers, the house mother, they all seem adrift. Their sense of purpose, their entire world, suddenly evaporated. The rigid hierarchy that has defined your existence has crumbled in the space of a 15-minute radio broadcast. Your liberation, however, is not a joyous event. There is no one to unlock your door and tell you that you are free. In fact, the opposite happens. In the days that follow the announcement, the chaos only deepens. The command structure of the Japanese army is disintegrating. The soldiers in your compound are left to their own devices. Some of them get drunk and violent. Others simply desert, melting away into the surrounding countryside. The house mother disappears. One morning she is just gone. The guards vanish. The dull steel rooms, which were once so formidably locked, are now left swinging open. You are technically free, but you have been abandoned in the middle of a war zone in a foreign country with nothing. This period of abandonment is a chapter of the comfort women's story that is often overlooked. The end of the war was not a clean break. For many women, it was simply a transition from one kind of danger to another. They were left stranded, hundreds or thousands of miles from home with no money, no papers, and no way to get back. They were vulnerable to starvation, to disease, to violence from local populations who saw them as collaborators, and to the advancing Allied Soviet forces. Historians are still piecing together what happened during this chaotic period. Did local commanders receive orders to abandon the women? Or was it simply a matter of every man for himself in the face of defeat? The answer likely varies from place to place. In some areas, there is evidence that the women were simply left behind. In others, there are horrific accounts of massacres as retreating Japanese units executed the comfort women to eliminate the witnesses to their crimes. Whether this was a widespread, systematic policy or the isolated actions of panicked local commanders is a subject of intense and painful debate. You huddle in your room with a few of the other girls, afraid to leave the relative safety of the compound. The world outside is a terrifying cacophony of gunfire and shouting in languages you don't understand. You are free from your prison, but you are now a refugee in a world that is tearing itself apart. One day, a group of soldiers from a different army arrive at the gate. Their uniforms are a different color, their language is completely alien. They look at you and the other girls with a mixture of pity and confusion. They give you some food, a can of meat, a piece of chocolate that tastes impossibly, achingly sweet. They do not seem to understand who you are, or what this place was. To them, you are just another piece of the wreckage of the war. The Emperor's faint voice on the radio ended the war, but it did not end your ordeal. It simply began a new, uncertain chapter. You have survived the station. Now you must survive the peace. The journey home is not a single, straight line. It is a long, broken, wandering path. It is a journey you must make mostly on foot, in a borrowed pair of ill-fitting shoes with the gnawing ache of hunger as your constant companion. After the soldiers of the unknown army moved on, you and a small group of other girls, including, by some miracle, Su Jin, whom you found in the chaos of the abandoned station, decided you could not stay. The compound was a ghost, haunted by memories too painful to bear. You had to move. You had to go home. But which way was home? You had been moved so many unfamiliar times, dragged across so many unfamiliar landscapes, that your internal compass was shattered. You started walking. You followed the flow of other refugees, a great, human river of displaced people, all trying to find their way back to a life that no longer existed. You walked along dusty, cratered roads, past burned-out tanks and abandoned farmhouses. The landscape was a testament to the savagery of the war you had only ever heard through the thin walls of your room. You learned to be invisible. You kept your head down, your eyes on the ground. You learned to beg for food, a crust of bread here, a boiled potato there, from people who had almost nothing to give. You slept in barns, in bombed-out churches, in the open fields under a sky that was indifferent to your suffering. This post-war period was a time of immense, continent-wide chaos. Borders were being redrawn. Old governments had collapsed, and new ones had not yet formed. There was no organized effort to repatriate the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of displaced civilians. Organizations like the Red Cross were overwhelmed. For many former comfort months, sometimes even years, you and Sujin became a unit, a family of two. You looked out for each other. When you were sick with a fever, she found a kind woman in a village who gave you a herbal remedy. When she despaired and wanted to give up, you told her stories of your home, of the persimmons, painting a picture of a life you could return to, even if you weren't sure you believed it yourself. This journey forces you to confront a new and painful reality. The world does not see you as a victim of the war. To the Allied soldiers you occasionally encounter, you are just another displaced person. To the local villagers, your foreign face and your Japanese-issued clothing mark you as an enemy, a collaborator. You are spat at, cursed at. You learn not to speak of the station, not to explain where you came from. Your story is a brand, a mark of shame that you must keep hidden. The question of how these women were perceived by their own communities upon their return is a subject of deep and painful study for sociologists and historians. In the patriarchal, Confucian-influenced societies from which many of the women came, the purity of a woman was of paramount importance. To have been a comfort woman, regardless of the fact that it was through force and deception, was seen as a source of unbearable shame, not just for the woman herself, but for her entire family. This societal stigma was, in many ways, the second phase of their imprisonment. One day you reach a port city. It is a scene of utter chaos, a swirling mass of soldiers, refugees, and opportunists. You hear that there are ships that are going back to your homeland. For weeks, you and Sujin live in a squalid refugee camp, working odd jobs, saving every single scrap of food and every coin you can find, trying to get passage on one of those ships. Finally, the day comes. You stand on the deck of a massively overcrowded cargo ship, touching the railing as it pulls away from the shore. The foreign land, the land that has been your prison for so long, shrinks to a thin line on the horizon, and then disappears. You are heading east, towards the rising sun, towards home. You should feel joy, relief, a sense of triumph, but you don't. You just feel empty, numb. The girl who left home, the girl who dreamed of buying sweet rice for her family, is gone forever. You are a different person now, a ghost returning from a war that no one else knows you fought. As you lean against Sujin, the salts break bold on your face, you have a terrifying thought. What if home isn't home anymore? What if the place you have been fighting to get back to doesn't want you? The long road back is almost over. But you are beginning to fear that the hardest part of your journey is just beginning. The ship docks not in a bustling, welcoming harbor, but at a makeshift pier in a city that bears the deep scars of war and occupation. The journey across the water was a purgatory of seas and disgust and hunger, but now you are here. You are standing on the soil of your homeland. The air should feel familiar, but it doesn't. Everything seems grayer, sadder than you remember. You and Sujin part ways at the docks. Her village is to the south, yours is to the north. Your farewell is brief, tearful, and heavy with unspoken words. You have been each other's anchor for so long that the thought of continuing alone is terrifying. You promise to find each other someday, a promise you both know you may never be able to keep, and then you turn, and you're on your own. It takes you another week to get back to your valley. You travel by a combination of crowded, dilapidated trains and long stretches of walking. With every step that brings you closer to home, the knot of anxiety in your stomach tightens. What will you explain where you have been? You have concocted a story, a thin, flimsy lie about working in a factory that was bombed, about being displaced by the war. You have been practicing it in your mind, but the words feel like ash in your mouth. When you finally walk down the familiar muddy path into your village, your heart is hammering against your ribs. The mountains are the same. The curve of the creek is the same, but something is different. The village seems quieter, more subdued. You see faces you recognize, but they are older, worn down. They stare at you as you pass, their expressions a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and something else, something else, something else, something colder. You are a ghost they thought they would never see again. You reach the small house with the persimmon trees in the yard. It looks smaller, shabbier than you remember. Your mother is outside, hanging laundry on a line. She looks up as you approach. For a moment, she just stares, her eyes wide, as if she is seeing an apparition. Then, a slow, painful recognition dawns on her face. The reunion you have dreamed of, the one that kept you alive in the darkest moments, does not happen. There is no joyous cry, no rush to embrace you. Your mother's face crumples, not with relief, but with a complex agony that you don't understand. She looks around, her eyes darting nervously, as if to see if any of the neighbors are watching. She pulls you inside the house, her grip on your arm tightened painful. Your father is there. He looks a decade older. When he sees you, his face becomes a mask of stone. You begin to tell your flimsy, rehearsed story about the factory, but the words die in your throat. They know. You don't know how they know, perhaps from rumors that are filtered back, perhaps from the shame that is written all over their faces, but they know. Or at least, they know enough. No one asks you what happened. No one asks if you are hurt, if you are hungry. The questions are a gaping, silent hole in the middle of the room. Instead, your father says, "You cannot stay here." His words are not cruel. They are delivered in a tone of deep, weary sorrow. He explains that your presence brings shame to the family. Your younger sister will not be able to find a good husband. Your brothers will be dishonored. The village whispers, your story, whatever the truth of it is, has tainted them all. This was the tragic homecoming for so many survivors. Instead of being welcomed as victims of a brutal war crime, they were treated as a source of disgrace. The societal emphasis on female purity meant that they were seen as spoiled, unclean. Their suffering was secondary to the dishonor brought upon their families. It's a phenomenon that sociologists call secondary victimization, where the victim is punished again by their own community. The silence that surrounded the comfort women issue for nearly half a century was not just a result of government denial. It was born in these quiet, painful moments of rejection in thousands of homes just like yours. Your mother gives you a small bundle of clothes and a little bit of money. She will not meet your eyes. Go to the city, your father says. Start a new life. Forget this place. We will tell everyone you died in the war. You are being erased for a second time. First, the army took your name and your identity. Now your own family is taking your past, your home, your very existence. You walk out of the house you fought your way across a continent to return to, and you do not look back. You are a stranger in your own home, a ghost in your own home. A ghost in your home, a ghost upon you is your new prison. And you understand that you must carry your story alone, a secret, toxic burden, buried deep inside you for the rest of your life. You go to the city as your father commanded. The city is a sprawling, chaotic place, teeming with refugees and soldiers, a place where it is easy to be anonymous. You find a small room to rent in a crowded slum and a job in a textile factory, the very job you were once promised. The irony is a bitter pill you swallow every day. The work is hard, the pay is meager, but it is a life, a new life, built on the ashes of the old one. You tell no one your story. It is a locked room inside your heart, and you have thrown away the key. You learn to live with the ghosts. The nightmares still come, but less frequently now. Sometimes, a certain smell, the damp wool of a coat on the bus, a particular brand of cheap lit darkness, but you learn to push it down, to keep walking, to keep your face a blank mask. You live this way for years. The years turn into decades. The world changes. The ruined city is rebuilt, its new skyscrapers gleaming in the sun. The war becomes a distant memory, a story in history books, a subject for movies. But it is not a memory for you. It is a constant, living presence. You carry the house with no name inside you, its thin walls and bolted door as real as the day you left it. Then, one day in the late 1980s, you hear something that shakes the foundations of your silent world. You read a small article in a newspaper. It says that the Japanese government, after decades of denial, has been forced to admit the existence of the comfort stations during the war. They still claim the women were willing prostitutes, recruited by private brokers, and that the military was not directly involved in coercion. But it is the first crack in the wall of silence. Around the same time, you hear of researchers, historians, and activists who are beginning to search for the truth. They are digging through declassified archives in the United States and elsewhere, looking for the paper trail that the Japanese military tried so hard to erase. And they find it. They find requisitions for the construction of comfort stations. They find shipping manifests that list women as military supplies. They find medical logs with the women's assigned Japanese names. They find regulations for the operation of the stations, signed and stamped by high-ranking officers. But most of all, you learn of the bonfires. You read testimonies from former soldiers who, in the final, chaotic days of the war, were given explicit orders to burn the evidence. They describe a frenzy of destruction as truckloads of documents, personnel files, accounting ledgers, reports and photographs related to the comfort women system were thrown into massive bonfires. It was a systematic, deliberate attempt to wipe the entire operation from the historical record to ensure that the story could never be told. The academic debate over the bonfire of ledgers is a fascinating and chilling corner of WWII history. How extensive was this destruction? Was the order given from the highest levels of the Imperial General Headquarters in Tokyo, or was it a series of independent decisions made by panicked local commanders? While no single, signed order for the destruction has ever been found, it was likely a verbal command. For obvious reasons, the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. The near total lack of official Japanese records for a system that was so vast and so meticulously administered is, in itself, the most damning proof. It is a history defined by its absence, a silence that speaks louder than any document. For you, reading about these bonfires is a strange, painful validation. They tried to burn you out of history. The fact that they felt the need to destroy the evidence so thoroughly is an admission of their guilt. They knew what they had done was wrong. They knew it was a crime that had to be hidden. The ledgers that recorded your fictional debt, the medical files that catalogued your sicknesses, the personnel file with your photograph and your false Japanese name, all of it, you imagine, turned to ash and smoke, drifting up into a foreign sky. They thought they had succeeded. They thought the secret would be kept forever, buried under a mountain of lies and a half-century of silence. But they were wrong. They could burn the paper, but they couldn't burn the memories. The story did not live in the ink of their ledgers. It lived in the minds and bodies of the women who survived. And as you fold the newspaper, a small, terrifying, and yet exhilarating thought begins to form in your mind. Perhaps the time for silence is over. Perhaps it is time for the ghost to speak. The crack in the wall of silence widens. It is no longer just scholars and activists whispering in archives. The whispers are becoming a public murmur. A few brave women, often using pseudonyms to protect their families, begin to tell their stories to journalists and researchers. Their accounts are fragmented, cautious, but they are a start. Then on August 14, 1991, a woman named Kin, HAK Sun, steps in front of a wall of television cameras and reporters in Seoul. She is 67 years old, a grandmother, with a soft, lined face and a look of quiet, unshakable resolve in her eyes. And she does something no one has ever done before. She tells her story, her real story, using her real name on the public record. You watch her on a small television in the corner of a neighborhood restaurant, the sound barely audible over the clatter of dishes. But you are mesmerized. She speaks in a calm, steady voice, but her words are fire. She talks about being deceived, about the truck, about the station in China. She talks about the soldiers, the fear, the sickness. She speaks the unspeakable, the truth you've carried in your silent heart for nearly 50 years. Her testimony is a lightning bolt that electrifies the nation and the world. For decades, the Japanese government's official line has been that the comfort women were willing, professional prostitutes, and that there is no official evidence of coercion by the military. Kim HK-san's testimony, her very presence, is a direct, human refutation of that lie. She is the evidence. Her act of courage is a watershed moment. It transforms the comfort women issue from a historical debate into a pressing human rights crisis. Why did she speak out, after so many years of silence? She herself said that she was growing old, and she was terrified of dying without the truth being known. She was also incensed by the Japanese government's continued denials. She said, "The story is not over until the Japanese government apologizes and makes things right." The historical significance of her testimony cannot be overstated. It broke the dam of shame and silence. In the months and years that followed, inspired by her bravery, other survivors began to come forward. First a trickle, then a flood. Korea, China, the Philippines, Taiwan, Indonesia, the Netherlands. Each story was unique, yet horrifully similar. The patterns of deception, coercion, and brutality were undeniable. Of course, the decision to speak out was not an easy one. Many survivors faced backlash from their own communities, even from their own families, who felt the old shame being dredged up. They were accused of being greedy, of seeking money, of bringing dishonor to their country. The patriarchal values that had enforced their silence for so long did not disappear overnight. It took a different kind of courage to face this public scrutiny than it did to survive the stations themselves. Whether or not the majority of women who came forward were typical of the average comfort woman is a question that social historians sometimes grapple with. Did the women who spoke out tend to be those who had no immediate family to be shamed, or those who possessed a particularly resilient or defiant personality? It's an impossible question to answer definitively, but it doesn't diminish the power of their testimony. They spoke not just for themselves, but for the hundreds of thousands who had died, or who were still too afraid, too traumatized, or too ashamed to speak their own truth. You watch the old woman on the television, and you feel the locked door inside your heart begin to tremble on its hinges. You feel the ghosts inside you stir. She is speaking your truth. She is telling your truth. She is telling your story. For the first time in your adult life, you are not alone. The shame that has been your constant companion for half a century begins to feel different. Lighter. You realize it was never your shame to begin with. It was theirs. The shame of the recruiters, the soldiers, the officers, the government that built the system and then tried to erase it. You were the victim, not the perpetrator. It is a simple, profound revelation that shakes you to your core. Kim Hak-sun's voice on the television is a call to arms, a call to speak. You're old now too. Your hair is grey, your hands are gnarled from years of factory work. You think of your own journey, your own silence. You think of Soo-jin, and wonder if she is still alive, if she is still alive, if she is watching this too. The grandmother on the television has given you a gift, the most precious gift of all. Permission to be heard. And you begin to wonder if you too have the courage to tell your story. The grandmothers have declared war. Not a war of memory against forgetting, of testimony against denial. Inspired by Kim Hak-sun, a small group of elderly survivors, you among them, begin to gather. At first, you meet in secret, in church basements and community centers, sharing your stories with each other, finding strength in the shocking, validating similarities of your experiences. For the first time, you are speaking the truth out loud, and the world does not end, a new world begins. Your small group, supported by activists, lawyers, and historians, decides to take the fight directly to the source. And so begins the Wednesday demonstration. Every Wednesday, rain or shine, summer heat or winter snow, a small band of grandmothers, many in their 70s and 80s and 80s and 80s and in failing health, gather in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul. You stand there, holding a sign with a simple demand: an official, sincere apology, legal reparations, and the inclusion of your history in Japan's textbooks so that future generations will know the truth. The first demonstration is small, by a few dozen people. The embassy officials draw their blinds and ignore you. The police watch you with wary curiosity. But you come back the next Wednesday, and the Wednesday after that. The demonstration becomes a global phenomenon. It is one of the longest-running weekly protests in the world. What started as a small, local gathering of survivors becomes a major international rally for human rights, attended by students, religious leaders, politicians, and tourists from around the world. It is a living, breathing testament to your resilience. The fight for a true apology, however, proves to be a long and frustrating battle. The Japanese government's position shifts over the years, a slow, grudging retreat from outright denial. In 1993, the Kono Statement is issued, in which the Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshiki officially acknowledges, for the first time, the military's involvement and the coercive nature of the recruitment. It is a major victory, but it falls short of a full, official apology from the parliament. Then, a private fund, the Asian Women's Fund, is established to distribute atonement money to the survivors. This becomes a major point of contention. You and many of the other survivors reject it. You argue that this is private money funded by donations, not an official act of state reparation. To accept it, you feel, would be to accept a private handout in exchange for your silence. You are not seeking charity, you are seeking justice. The slogan of your movement becomes, "It is not about the money, it is about the apology." This debate over the nature of the apology, what constitutes a sincere apology, the difference between private atonement and official state reparations is a complex issue that historians and international law experts continue to analyze. Is a statement from a cabinet member the same as a resolution passed by the entire government? Is financial compensation from a private fund a substitute for legal reparations? These are not just semantic arguments. They go to the very heart of how a nation takes responsibility for its past crimes. Your fight is not just with the Japanese government. You also face a powerful and from nationalist and revisionist groups in Japan. They accuse you of being liars, of fabricating your stories for political or financial gain. They publish books and articles debunking your testimonies, seizing on minor inconsistencies in the decades-old memories of traumatized elderly women as proof that the entire story is a hoax. It is a cruel secondary assault, an attempt to gaslight you and the entire world. But you persist. You travel the world, giving testimony at the United Nations, at universities, at human rights conferences. Your body is frail, but your voice is strong. Every time you tell your story, you are chipping away at the wall of denial. You are no longer the silent, shamed girl in the small room. You are a warrior. You think of Sujin. One day, through the network of survivors, you find her. She is living in a small village in the south, just as she said she would. Your reunion is a quiet, tearful affair. You are two old women now. Your face is a roadmap of a hard-lived life. You sit together holding hands, not needing to say much. You have found each other again. And this time, you march together at the Wednesday demonstration. Two old soldiers, still fighting their war, side by side. Years pass. The Wednesday demonstrations continue, a steady, persistent heartbeat in the center of the city. But time is a relentless adversary. One by one, the grandmothers grow frail. They pass away, taking their stories, their memories, their pain with them. Each death is a profound loss, a library of experience burned to the ground. There is a growing sense of urgency, a fear that the last living witness will be gone before true justice is achieved. You too feel the years weighing on you. Some days, it is a struggle just to get out of bed, let alone stand for hours in front of an embassy. But then you think of the girls who did not survive, the ones who died of sickness in the stations, the ones who were lost in the chaos of the war's end, the ones who took their own lives in the lonely, silent decades that followed. You are speaking for them now. Your voice is their voice. And then, something new begins to happen. A new way to make the story permanent, to ensure it will outlast the final survivor. The idea of a statue is born, a memorial, a permanent, silent witness. The first statue of peace, also Neo-Sang, is erected in Seoul in 2011, directly across the street from the Japanese embassy, on the site of the 1000th Wednesday demonstration. It is a life-sized bronze sculpture of a young girl, sitting in a chair. She is dressed in a traditional Korean hanbok. Her hands are clenched in her lap, her feet are bare, and on her shoulder sits a small bird, a symbol of peace and a connection to the world of the spirits. She is not crying, determined defiance. She is human. She is young, she is every girl who was taken. The statue is a work of profound artistic and political power. It is not a heroic, triumphalist monument. It is small, human scale. The chair beside the girl is empty, an invitation for you, the viewer, to sit with her, to bear witness to her story. It is an act of solidarity cast in bronze. The statue becomes a lightning rod for controversy. The Japanese government officially protests its placement, calling it damaging to diplomatic relations. They demand its removal, but the statue stays. It is protected, day and night, by a rotating guard of students and activists. It becomes more than a memorial. It becomes a symbol of the ongoing struggle for justice. The idea spreads. Similar statues begin to appear in cities across South Korea, and then around the world, in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, in Germany. Each installation sparks a diplomatic firestorm, as Japanese officials lobby furiously to prevent them from being erected. The fight over the memory of the comfort women is now being waged on a global scale in city council meetings and public parks. The debate over these statues touches on a complex and sensitive issue that historians of public memory often discuss. Who has the right to tell a story in a public space? Are these statues a legitimate memorial to a historical injustice, or are they, as their opponents claim, a political tool designed to shame a modern nation for the crimes of its past? The statues are not just about history, they are about the present. They are a physical embodiment of an unresolved political and moral conflict. You are there the day the first statue is unveiled. It is a cold December morning. You stand wrapped in a thick coat, watching as the cloth is pulled away to reveal the small bronze girl. And you weep. You weep for the girl you were, for the life that was stolen from you. But you also weep with a sense of profound, weary vindication. They can deny the story. They can burn the records. They can wait for all the witnesses to die. But they cannot erase this. The girl cast in bronze will sit here, across from their embassy, long after you are gone. She will bear silent witness in the sun and the rain and the snow. She will not speak, but she will tell your story to everyone who passes by. She will ensure that the world can never, ever forget. Your fight is not over, but you know now that your story will not die with you, set in stone. And so our journey through this long and shadowed valley comes to a gentle close. The story now rests, its final words whispered into the quiet of your room. Let the images begin to soften the bronze statue, the determined faces of the grandmothers, the scent of persimmons in a long-ago autumn. Let them all dissolve, like sugar in warm water, becoming just a gentle, fading impression in your mind. You can feel a sense of distance now, a comfortable, peaceful distance from the story we have shared. It is over, and you are here, safe in your bed, feeling the gentle weight of your blankets, the soft support of your pillow. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to understand. Your breath is slow and deep now, rising and falling in its own natural, peaceful rhythm. Each breath carries you a little further away from the waking world, a little deeper into the soft and welcoming landscape of your own rest. The sounds in your room may seem farther away now, the quiet hum of the night, all of it becoming a gentle lullaby, guiding you towards sleep. If any thoughts remain, just let them be. Let them drift by like lazy clouds in a vast, quiet sky, knowing you don't have to hold on to any of them. You can just let go and allow the gentle current of slumber to carry you. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly. Good night.